Hello, welcome back to Music Theory Logic. My name's Andrew, and today's going to be another music theory breakdown. Today we're going to look at the song Whatever You Like by T.I. Song was quite the hit. I remember when it came out, not to date myself. Here we go into the Logic session. So if you haven't seen one of these before, I am not going to play the original track. I'm going to play my recreation of the instrumental. I do my best to make these close to the originals in terms of song selection and mix, but I don't spend too much time getting it like perfect mix-wise because I don't own the rights to the track, so that would be kind of a waste of time. I'm going to play the instrumental. It's a consolidated version since we don't have any vocals, and then I'm going to go through the scale that we use. Cool, let's go ahead and listen. Nice, and then I think I have a breakdown over here section. Cool. So that is pretty similar to the other section, although we get some brass instruments. So again, I didn't do like the whole instrumental section because it would be kind of boring without the vocals. Hopefully that alone wasn't boring for you. So let's go ahead into the music theory. We're gonna demystify where all these notes come from. So Whatever You Like by T.I. is in the key of D minor. That means that we have almost all white keys. From D to D, we have one black key, that is B flat. D minor has the relative major or a major key with the same notes as F major. It sounds like this if we just play that scale. Cool. Then the chord progression that we have for most of this, for the entire song, really, is the one chord, D minor, followed by the major 6th chord, that's a B flat major, followed by an F major, that's our 3 chord in D minor, followed by our 7 chord, which is our C major. Now, if we wanted to define this in terms of F major, we could do so. We would basically call this D minor as a 6 chord in F major. The B flat's a 4 chord in F major. The F major chord is the 1 chord in F major. And then the C is a 5 chord. So because of the melody, I decided to call this or define it in terms of D minor. I will sort of explain that as we get into it. Let's go into the various instrumentals. So the main section we have throughout the song are these 8th note string sections. We start out, we play all the chords that I just showed you. So it's a D minor in root position. Then it's a B flat chord in first inversion. Then it's a F major chord in second inversion. Then it's our C major chord in first inversion. So a chord inversion basically means that we have the same notes from the chord, we just don't have the low note as the bottom note in the chord. So I went quicker through the scales. Basically, if I lost you there, all of these chords only contain notes from this scale over here. A sophisticated way to say that is that these chords on the right are diatonic chords. That's a word that means like coming from the tonic or from the scale. Tonic is another word for the root note or our bass note of any key. So that chord progression happens on the steady 8th notes. There is some humanization that's happening. I don't remember if I played this or sort of attempted to humanize it. Music from this era really lots of music, even current music, has like a human touch to it. We generally like that, but there's something to music. The older music is, the more human element to it, and that's just because of technology not being at the same point. There wasn't the ability to digitally edit on the level that we can now, essentially. The drums from this song are pretty simple. We have a standard backbeat, that is the snare on beat 2 and 4. We have a kick drum doing this basically quarter note triplets. It's on the first of the 16th notes. All these boxes are 16th notes because of my grid. We're on the 4th box, and then the 7th box with our kick drum. And then we get another syncopated note on the 8th note, basically after beat 3, right there. Our cymbals are pretty straightforward. They're just doing 8th notes. They're also somewhat like have a human feel to them. Since our strings are doing have a human touch to them. If our other instruments are like totally perfect, our ears are going to pick up on how something strange is happening there. Then finally, we just have a crash cymbal on the 1. Halfway through the drum groove in the second 4 measures, we start to get a secondary snare and secondary sort of sound happening with the drum rolls, basically accenting on second 16th notes and then 4 16th notes in a row at the end of the 4-bar sequence. Let's play that and watch the drums. Here come those snare rolls. Cool. So really the drums are pretty straightforward. You could definitely notice like adding a secondary snare or some sort of like drum rolls around. You can notice how that adds some energy or some variation second half. So that's definitely a lot of what is going on there. I then separated out those snare rolls into another channel so that I'm controlling the mix better. Next thing I'll talk about is our 808 line, or our bass line. It's following almost the same pattern as the kick drum. The first 3 notes of each measure are with the kick drum. Then we get 2 quarter notes following. So on beat 3 and then beat 4. We're playing all of the root notes from the chords. So whereas our violins had chord inversions, part of the reason that doesn't matter is because our bass instrument is still playing the lowest note from the chord. So when we're listening to this full instrumental, we hear that as the low note, not the low note from the violins, meaning the chord inversion doesn't feel as much different. If every chord had that inversion built into the channel, like if this note was playing a D instead of a B flat, it would give all of the music a slightly different feel. It doesn't mean that it's going to sound wrong. It's just going to be kind of like a different shade of that color, if you will. The same rhythm happens every single measure. We're just following the root notes. Let's watch that while we listen. Nice. Actually notice a note I think is wrong. Let's see if that is correct. There we go. So that highlights how does that note not feel as wrong as sort of we would think a wrong note would. Because I had the note D in the bass, and that's our main our note that our home tonic, or the scale we're writing in. That note we're hearing in the melody and everywhere else. So even though that makes that C major chord that we have over D kind of a weird harmony, what we would call that, it still somewhat worked. Which is why I didn't catch it before we hit record. So up here is our main sort of melodic section that happens in the beginning, which is kind of like a mid bass, if you will. So it's going from D up to E, F. So 3, so 1, 2, 3, down to the 6. This is the root from the chord. Goes up to the next note from the key. That's the 7th. Then we go down to the root note we expected, up to C, and then we do this run at the end, which is F, E, D, E. So again, all those notes come from the key. One pertinent thing is down here, this is pitch bend automation. So you'll notice it feels kind of like wrong or dissonant right at the beginning. If you go back and listen to the original, it has that sound too. It just kind of adds to some like weirdness of the introduction, which makes everything as it comes into like a consonant harmony or something that rings together, like everything fits better. Finally, we have this flute solo thing that's happening really, really softly in the background. I'll play it. So it's basically doing this run C, D, F, G down to D. So that's 7, 1, 3, 4 from our key down to the 1. It repeats that, and the only difference is the second 2 times it goes down to C. We get that note in the chord that's playing F major. That's the 5th or the 3rd note from the chord. We could call it the 5th of F in terms of melodic intervals. And then finally, that's our root note of the final chord, the C major here. Yeah, so that flute solo really just adds to the mid bass that's above. It gives us kind of a cool texture. All right, the main thing that we're hearing in the instrumental besides the vocal and everything else I've showed you is the main melody. This is probably what a lot of you are looking forward to learning about. So this melody is really, really simple. Let's play it and listen to it. That way it's fresh in our minds when I tell you the notes. All right, so it's going D, F, D, D. So 1, 3, 1, 1 from our key. Then it's going D, F, F, D, D, C, C. So 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 7, 7 from our key. That basically repeats a second time. 1, 3, 3, 1, 1 down to 7. We stay on the 7 for the 4th measure. Makes sense because we have the C major chord happening. We're hitting a C. We go up to E. That's another note from our chord that's happening there, our C major. Then finally we hit our root note again, D, D, back to E, or 1, 1 back to the 2nd note from the key. Cool. So again, this song, I wanted to do it. One, I love this track. You'll find in music that if you get into music production and making music, that there's a certain magic to music that you listen to before you know all of this stuff. And this song is one of those for me where I was listening to this and, jamming along as it was at like a school dance or on the radio without really understanding any of what I just told you. All that stuff I picked up in the years past that. But I think this song does a really good job of not introducing anything incredibly complex, but it's also a really cool instrumental and interesting on its own. So that's probably why it's such a hit record. As you write music, you'll find that you at least are trying to write sort of commercially appealing music. You're going to want to do a lot with the little notes. So not doing some of the crazy stuff that you might do in a film score, but really trying to figure out something super interesting and catchy, or a statement to say that you can create an interesting texture out of, as opposed to just lots and lots of different notes. And I think songs like this show us that we don't have to do the most complicated thing to create a really cool sounding instrumental. Finally, the bridge section gets this one 16-bar version of the horn section. This is kind of a flip between our bass line and the flute solo section. So this run is borrowed from our flute solo. Starts on D, goes F, E, D, E. Saw that on the flutes. We go down to B flat. That's in our chord. Totally makes sense. We go then B flat, C, D, C. This we would call a sequence. If you notice, it looks very similar to this, just some different notes. So we're doing stepwise motion around the scale, same rhythm for 16th notes. And then finally, we hit the F. That's our root note in that moment. We're going to C. That's our root note. We do this one fill in between. That's D, F, D, E on the way to C. And again, that happens basically in this section of the song. This is the full instrumental. So this is our bridge. We then go back to the main instrumental after that. Again, don't play the whole thing because it would be boring without the vocals. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We got to learn a lot about the key of D minor, which again is the same as F major. Hopefully you learned a little bit about writing chord progression or the melody from this song. Hopefully you can take these skills and apply them to your own music. If you do, you're always welcome to leave a link to your track in the comments or to email me the music. I'd love to hear tracks that these videos are helping you to make. I wish you a really happy day. Good luck with your music. If you liked this video, you'd help me out by subscribing to the channel. And if you do, I'll see you guys next time. Till then, have a great one.